Have you ever noticed how some movie villains just stick in your memory forever? Like, you could watch hundreds of films, see countless characters, but there are always a few villains who stand out so much that even years later, you can picture their faces, hear their voices, and remember exactly how they made you feel. They're not just bad guys on the screen. They're unforgettable. One of those villains, for so many people, was General Zod from the Superman films. And if you've ever seen Superman 2, then you already know the line. You can probably hear it in your head right now. Kneel before Zod. Chilling, right? Just 3 little words, but the way they were delivered, wow. They sent shivers down your spine. And the man behind that voice, the man who brought Zod to life in a way no one could ever forget, was the legendary actor Terence Stamp. Sadly, Terence has just passed away at the age of 87. It's a huge loss, not just for fans of Superman, but for the world of cinema as a whole. He was one of those actors who could step into any role and completely transform it. He wasn't just a performer, he was a presence. So today, we're taking some time to look back at his incredible life and career. We'll remember his role as Zod, of course, but also the many other sides of him, because Terence Stamp was so much more than just one character. He left behind a legacy that spanned over 6 decades, touching everything from classic dramas to modern blockbusters, and even surprising audiences in ways most people never expected. By the end of this, you might just realize that you've seen Terence in more places than you thought. Let's start with the role that made him a household name for so many people, Superman 2. The year was 1980, and superhero films weren't what they are today. There wasn't a Marvel Cinematic Universe. There wasn't a constant wave of comic book adaptations. Back then, Superman was groundbreaking. Christopher Reeve had already won audiences over as the perfect Superman, charming, heroic, and inspiring. But a hero is only as good as his villain, right? That's where Terence came in. He stepped into the role of General Zod, a Kryptonian villain banished from Superman's home planet, only to return and try to conquer Earth. Now, villains at the time were often a little cartoonish, sometimes even silly. But Terence Stamp changed that. He gave Zod this calm, icy confidence that made him terrifying. He didn't need to shout or act over the top. He just had to look at you with that piercing stare, deliver his lines in that deep, commanding voice, and suddenly, you believed him. You believed he could take over the world. Think about it. Even today, decades later, people still quote "Kneel before Zod." It became part of pop culture. And it's all because of the way Terence Stamp played him. He didn't just act the role. He was Zod. And in doing so, he set a standard for villains in superhero movies that still felt today. But here's the thing, Terence's career was so much bigger than just Superman. He had been acting long before that role, and he kept acting long after. His story stretches across so many genres, styles, and decades that it's almost hard to keep track. He wasn't just one kind of actor. He was the kind who could fit into any world, whether it was a gritty crime drama, a sci-fi epic, or even a comedy. In fact, his career started way back in the 1960s, and in those days, he was seen as one of the faces of the swinging Sixties in London. Imagine a young, strikingly handsome actor with piercing blue eyes, hanging around in a city buzzing with culture, music, and fashion. He was like the British James Dean, cool, mysterious, and magnetic. He worked with legendary directors like Federico Fellini and Peter Ustinov, and he dated some of the most famous women of the time. He wasn't just an actor, he was part of that whole cultural explosion. And while many people today remember him only for Superman, those who followed his career know that he was always reinventing himself. Take the Limey, for example. That was a film from 1999, directed by Steven Soderbergh, and it gave Stamp one of his most powerful roles later in life. He played Wilson, a tough, relentless man out for revenge after his daughter's mysterious death. The performance was raw, emotional, and absolutely unforgettable. It showed that even decades into his career, Terence still had that intensity, that magnetism, that ability to pull you into a story and keep you hooked. And here's a fun bit of trivia: if you're a Star Wars fan, you might have spotted him in Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. He played Chancellor Valorum. It was a smaller role, sure, but it's one of those, oh wait, that's him, moments that makes you realize just how wide his career reached. From Superman to Star Wars, that's not a bad resume, right? Now, let me share something that really struck me. Terence once admitted that at first, he wasn't sure about taking the role of Zod. He worried about being typecast, about being remembered only as a comic book villain. It's something a lot of actors think about, how one role can define your whole career, for better or worse. But looking back, that role ended up being one of the best decisions of his life. It gave him a legacy that touched millions. It made him a part of cinema history forever. And it shows us something important too, that sometimes, the things we hesitate about, the choices we second-guess, can actually turn out to be the ones that change everything for the better. And it wasn't just his acting. Terence Stamp's voice became iconic in its own right. That deep, commanding tone wasn't just perfect for Zod, it was so unique that it was later used in video games, commercials, and even influenced how other actors approached villain roles. Think about how many times you've seen a supervillain in a movie since then: strong, charismatic, intimidating. A lot of that can be traced back to what Terence did with Zod. He set the bar. He gave us the template. So when we look back at Terence Stamp's life, it's not just about the roles he played. It's about the impact he had. He was an actor who could do it all: be the cool young star of the 60s, the chilling villain of the 80s, the surprising comeback star of the 90s, and even the wise authority figure in the 2000s. Few actors get to have a career that long and that varied. And fewer still get to be remembered for roles that truly shaped cinema history. And now that he's gone, it feels like the end of an era. But at the same time, it's also a reminder of just how powerful movies can be. Because Terence Stamp may no longer be with us, but his work, his presence, his voice, they'll live on. Every time someone watches Superman 2 and hears "Kneel before Zod," he'll be right there. Every time someone discovers the Limey or spots him in Star Wars, his legacy continues. So let me ask you, what's your memory of Terence Stamp? Was it Zod that left the biggest mark on you, or do you remember him from another role? Maybe the Limey? Maybe Star Wars? Or maybe you even know him from one of his earlier films in the 60s. I'd really love to hear your thoughts, because everyone's memory of an actor like him is a little different, and together, those memories paint the full picture of his legacy. And if you found this little trip through his career interesting, I think you'll also enjoy our video on Christopher Reeve and his journey as Superman. Their stories are connected in such a powerful way, and watching them together gives you an even deeper appreciation for what those films meant. Before you go, don't forget to hit the like button if this brought back memories for you. Leave a comment with your favorite Terence Stamp role, and of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this, stories that celebrate the legends of film, the ones who shaped our imagination and gave us characters we'll never forget. Because at the end of the day, actors like Terence Stamp remind us that movies are so much more than just entertainment. They're memories. They're emotions. They're pieces of our lives that stick with us, sometimes for decades. And even though Terence Stamp has left us, his legacy will live on every time someone sits down, presses play, and once again hears those unforgettable words: "Kneel before Zod."